Hey, it's Hannah from Holistic Hormonal Health, and I just want to give you a little sneak peek into the Her Fertility program. So, this is what you get access to when you get the Her Fertility program. And as you can see here, there is a little navigation kind of taking you through it. And this here in the beginning is what you, there we go. Okay, so this is what you come into, and here is the intro video telling you about it. And one of the things that you get when you join Her Fertility is access to a private Facebook group, and then there's also an intake form. So these are kind of like pre even doing the course info and all that stuff. Now, next, we kind of have the core of the course right here, and this is the video modules. The video modules come in four different modules. The first three are really the core of teaching you how to chart. What is fertility awareness? So, in this module, we're going over psychology because a lot of people have blocks to using this method when they first start, no matter how excited they are about using it. And that's something that I added in after teaching for a little while and realizing that it's something that people could really use. My own story, and then we're going into what fertility awareness really is. This is great to have a really good foundation in, so you can talk to your partner, your doctor, whatever, and feel really confident about the choices that you're making, and how it differs from things because people always, you're using the rhythm method, you're going to get pregnant. You don't want to have to not have an answer to that. So this helps, reaffirm your own choice and also give you the information that you need to really trust the method, to talk about it to other people, all that stuff. And then we go over anatomy. And anatomy is important because some people don't really know it that well. And also, some of your anatomy, it's really important to know to really use the method. Then we're also going over the hormones of the cycle and why this method actually works. What do the hormones do in your body to actually make the method work? And it's so important to really know that stuff to use this method, because you understand why everything works and it will make so much more sense. Then we go over fertility signs. So, this is the second module, and after this module, you can really start charting. The fertility signs you are going over is temperature, cervical fluid, and cervix position. Most important being cervical fluid, temperature also being an amazing sign, and cervix being an optional sign. So there's a lot of cervical fluid info, and not only in this module is there a lot of cervical fluid info, but I'll also show you something else you get access to in Her Fertility, and kind of going over all about cervical fluid, what it is, why it works, what it looks like, how to check it, all that stuff. Just all of the basics of cervical fluid right here. Then we go over temperature. Same thing, how to check it, why it works, what it does, when it might change, all that stuff. And that's going to give you the basis for those signs that you need and how to chart. And the temperature one includes cervix as well. And then we have the rules. So this is after you chart. Oh, you need to interpret those charts to actually know when you're fertile and when you're not. So we're taking all of that information that we have, we're putting it on a chart, and then we're saying, okay, this phase is fertile, this phase is infertile. And we're able to do that confidently by applying these rules. And like I said, with these scientific principles and all that stuff, we go over that. Like, why does each one of these rules work? Then I go a video of like charting every single day. Like, what does it look like when you're actually going through a chart? Not just looking at a full, complete chart, but going through a chart every day. How are you applying the rules in that instance, when you can't see the full picture? I think that's really important, and that's why that video is included. And then sample charts, so you can kind of see what a normal sample chart might look like, what a sample chart might look like if you are anovulatory or having some kind of hormonal issue, and how we apply rules in those instances. And just kind of a wrap up, so kind of boring. And then with the video modules, you also get bonus videos. So the bonus videos include coming off hormonal birth control, because that's a huge thing that happens for a lot of people when they are starting to use fertility awareness, and it changes the what you're going to see on your chart and all that stuff. So it's so important to go over that stuff. And then there's just some fun ones like menstrual product alternatives, something that a lot of people are interested in. And it's also something that a lot of people can find changing their periods when they're using like conventional tampons and pads and stuff like that. And so when you get more awareness around your cycles, you might be like, hey, this isn't working out for me anymore. I realize I'm having like really heavy bleeding. And I've heard that, people don't get as heavy of bleeding when they're using a menstrual cup or when they're using a cloth pad or something like that. So, anyway, it's just something fun and exciting for you. What to do if you have anovulatory cycles, because you apply rules in a little bit of a different way with anovulatory cycles. Contraceptive options. I think this is really important because personally, I think it's great if you want to abstain or just use other sexual practices during your fertile phase. Great, awesome. The effectiveness is best in that case, but it's not always practical for everyone. So, going over what contraceptive options you have and also how you can combine them with FAM, either to make it more effective or to say, hey, I don't mind taking a little bit of a risk to, be able to do this. So, that is gone over in that video. And then breastfeeding with FAM, which is also kind of a different ball game. So if you happen to be breastfeeding, it's really good to have specific information on that. This is the guidebook, and that is just a complete ebook kind of teaching the method if you prefer to read rather than to watch the videos. With the ebook, though, I do recommend in a couple of places, hey, make sure you watch the videos on this because it's really important. Like being able to actually see videos of cervical fluid is really great and valuable, and definitely I would always recommend watching those. Now, these handouts, some of these include some things that I just call handouts, but they're not necessarily. Anyway, these are the printout slides for the actual videos. So if you like to print out slides and take notes or anything like that, it's just there for you. It's convenient. A blank chart so that if you want to chart on paper, you've got your template there. And then these other ones, a lot of them are reinforcing things in the actual program so that they're easy things for you to remember, to print out, like, print out on the back of your chart, print out and keep next to your bed, whatever. For instance, like rules. There's some that have other things. So I have like a recommended reading list for you. You don't need to read this stuff to actually know FAM, but it's for fun and then also interest. So some of them are FAM related, some of them are women's health in general. Then there's a preconception guide. So if you're thinking you want to get pregnant and maybe you're wanting to get pregnant in a couple years and you're wanting to transition to fertility awareness because you decided that you don't want to take hormones up until you get pregnant, well, then focusing on some things for preconception is really great. Getting pregnant, so if you're trying to get pregnant with FAM, and I also have separate video modules for getting pregnant, so I'll show you those in a minute. And then coming off hormones, again, super important stuff since that affects so many people who are using fertility awareness. Hormonal health tips, breastfeeding and using fertility awareness, a little quick guide to breaking your cycle into phases, rules, different kinds of secretions that you can see, taking your basal body temperature, things that'll affect it differently, basic cervical fluid guide, all that stuff. And then there's the getting pregnant videos. So these are videos all about using fertility awareness method to get pregnant. And then cervical fluid masterclass. So this is a whole other course that you basically get included in the her fertility program. So the cervical fluid masterclass is here, and this is so important because cervical fluid is the most important part of using fertility awareness, and also super great because a lot of people don't understand their cervical fluid very well and they just want to rely on temperatures, and that's no good. So, going through this and really knowing your cervical fluid is great. So, in the cervical fluid masterclass, you have intro videos that is talking about why cervical fluid is so important, and also your anatomy as it relates to cervical fluid. Then you have videos on how to check your cervical fluid. This is both external and internal checks. There are proper ways to do both. And if you're not actually checking it properly, then you might be confused about what you're actually finding. And then also vaginal sensation, because that's something that a lot of people ignore that shouldn't necessarily be ignored. Then you have actual videos, live time of what is happening with your cervical fluid, like actual cervical fluid videos showing over time the cervical fluid in motion, and how much it is going away, what it looks like when it's stretching, if it's snapping, if it's stretching a lot, all these kind of things. So it's really important seeing different kinds, and this includes like arousal fluid. It includes an end of the period that kind of can look like cervical fluid. It includes internal checks and showing what an internal check might look like on your fingers and how to determine the actual cervical fluid from that. And then it also includes this video is showing through the phases of your cycle, like the days of your cycle, what cervical can look like, fluid can look like as a progression. And that's also shown with the pictures. So I'll show you the pictures. And I'm not going to go through all of these, but basically there's like cervical fluid progression through a cycle again, and that's a different one than the video. And then there's just a bunch of pictures of cervical fluid. So I'm kind of going through these quickly, but yeah, lots of pictures and descriptions of cervical fluid. And then we have the master documents. So, the master documents are basically written out explanations of lots of things related to cervical fluid. So, what's a normal cervical fluid pattern? You need to know that to know whether you should be worried about anything or whether what you're seeing is normal, anything like that. Secretion possibilities throughout the cycle. Peak versus non peak cervical fluid. How do you differentiate both of them? Why is it important to know the difference? Different ways to experience cervical fluid. So that's like different characteristics that you're looking for in your cervical fluid, and why it's important to kind of pay attention to all of those. Basic and fertile patterns. So that's when you have cervical fluid, what seems like all the time, and how you can determine that and how you can work with that. What if your cervical fluid is crazy? Why and what you might do. Is it normal that it's crazy? Is it not? Why am I not seeing cervical fluid? That's a huge one. Cervical fluid while coming off of hormones, another huge one. Cervical fluid while breastfeeding, another big one. And medications that might affect your cervical fluid. So, this whole course is awesome in and of itself. And then also, it's included in the Her Fertility course when you get that. So, you will be a cervical fluid master. And yeah, that's what's included in the Her Fertility course. As well, you get, if you are in the um, Her Fertility course with one on one help, you get one on one help with me, you get office hours, you get the Facebook group, and you get email and text support for 6 months. If you are in the Her Fertility Light course, then you get the office hours and Facebook group. And if you're in the cervical fluid master class alone, you get the Facebook group. And I believe I'm also including office hours in that. It's kind of up in the air right now. So, anyway, this is kind of my courses that I have, and they're really cool. And I would love to have you in them. So, just a little overview of what Her Fertility is all about. Thanks. And again, this is Hannah from Holistic Hormonal Health, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.